Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sharin Stories. I'm your host, Peaks, with my two beautiful co-hosts, Sarah States and Paul Santos. This is not a therapy session. You will not find mental health professionals here, nor are we a substitute for said people. We are just people sharing our stories with mental health. On today's episode, we welcome Salvatore Liberti to the podcast. He can be found on Instagram at salva.live, where you can literally feel the inspiration coming from his page. Salvatore is a man of all trades in mental health, working as an inner peace guide, breath and meditation coach, energy healer, and much more. He is calming, understanding, and always wants to bring the best out of people, which is an amazing trait to have. I am so excited to get to know him a little better. So everyone, please welcome Salva Liberti.
Woo!
Welcome, Salva. It's lovely to have you on. I never can do enough with the intro. I don't know the ins and outs of your life. So really quickly, just 2 minutes, give us a little background on yourself.
First, Andrew, thank you for that fantastic intro. It was really, really good. I don't know if I could have done a better job, but I am certainly going to try my best. So my name is Salvatore Liberti. It's great to see everybody here, and it's great to connect with your audience. I am originally from Lima, Peru, and I live now in beautiful Los Angeles, California, working as, you said, an inner peace guide. I teach breathwork meditation. I help coach people on life, on spirituality, on how they can best heal themselves and become their own best healer. While I studied techniques in energy healing, I actually found that me using my energy to heal other people, while it's such a service to them and it's amazing to be able to see someone light up from that experience, I wanted to develop techniques and teach people really and empower them how they can be their own best healer, because nobody's feeling what you're feeling except you. He knows your story best than you and feels your energy. And so why not learn the techniques, learn the skills to get yourself to a place where you have that inner peace, that fulfillment with life. And so now I'm working with clients from all over the world, from Norway to Canada to Peru, in English and Spanish, to just spread this message that, hey, guess what? We have the power and the responsibility to create and shape our own reality, to filter our thoughts, to pick the ones that are going to contribute to us and are going to serve us the best, and to heal and let go of everything that doesn't serve us anymore as we're ascending consciousness, as we're moving forward into this post pandemic world, that there's no going back to anything. We're just going forward. And how can we help alleviate the suffering in our lives and the ones next to us and become beacons of that growth, beacons of that healing?
That's pretty awesome. I have a quote written down from you that I just kind of peeked on your Instagram a little bit ago. It says, ultimately, you are your own best healer. Begin the work. I was gonna kind of jump in. I think as we go through, we're gonna talk a lot about how we're our own best healer and how to begin that work. But I know that you didn't just get here by happenstance. You must have had your own life experiences and everything to kind of bring you to this point. So that's what I really want to focus on today. So if you're all good, I think we're ready to just kind of jump right into the ins and outs of who Salva Liberti is and see how you got to this point of realizing where you want to be and what you want to do.
Sure. And, I'll start by telling a little bit about my background, how I grew up, and how the influences in my early life shaped the experiences that I underwent and the realizations that came with it. And with that story, I want to share how I got through those moments and how it's got me to where I am right now. And, for those who don't know yet, I'm actually, the ripe age of 25 years young. And so I'm so excited for the rest of my life. But it all started when I was in Lima, Peru, to a family of four, and both my parents were actually TV personalities. My dad was radio host, TV show host, like an MC, a Peruvian Ryan Seacrest of the 90s, if you will. And my mom was a dancer. They met on a TV show. And so at one point, mom's like, okay, you tested like crazy, like high on your school stuff and IQ and all this stuff. And I talked to the school psychologist. She said, you can do whatever you want with your life. Guess what? We're moving to the United States. I'm like, okay, sure. So at 8 years old, 9 years old, family picked up everything and we moved to Miami to a massive country where nobody knew who we were. And so my parents go from being recognized on the street to my mom went to go be a housekeeper and my dad went to go be a chauffeur for some rich white family. And we literally moved into our friend's apartment where the living room was divided by one of those space dividers, and behind it was a twin bunk bed. My sister and I slept up top. My mom and dad slept on the bottom, and that was our start. Just a bunch of suitcases in a new place where there was a dream that we're selling us, right? The American dream. You go, you find opportunities, you study. There's this amazing world ahead. If you do what you're told, do what you're supposed to do, you're going to get there. I'm like, okay, got it. A few years later, my parents actually get divorced. And then my mom goes, you're the man of the house. You're responsible for your little sisters. And you got to be a man now. At 12 years old, I had to be a man. And that forced me to grow up. And I'd grown up, with people saying, oh, you're such an old soul. Look at this little kid. He talks like an adult. And so I'm like, okay, I'm ready. I got excited about it because I'm like, who doesn't want to grow up? When you're a kid, you're like so ready to be an adult. And as soon as you get to adulthood, you're like, wait, what about nap time? And that was amazing because it actually thrust me into a role where I had to grow up really, really fast. And I took on a lot of responsibility. I was placed a lot of responsibility and expectations on me because my mom was feeding me the story that they moved to this country because of me, because of the opportunities they wanted to give me and my sister. And so part of me was like, I have to make this worthwhile, right? I have to make this a success story so that my parents can be proud of me and that their sacrifices were worth us coming here. And so naturally that put a lot of pressure on myself. And, sometimes I still do put a lot of pressure on myself. I'm working every day to let go of that. And all and behold, my mom gets remarried. She gets divorced for the second time. She's in deep, deep depression. And I'm looking at my mom trying to see, like, oh my God, this woman's just crying all day. And she's so sad because her life isn't working out the way she feels it's supposed to. And she then found Tony Robbins, amazing self-help speaker, the best coach you could argue on the planet alive right now. He coaches the best. And, she devoured his tapes and his CDs, and she goes, you know what? You got to go to one of his events. I was 17 years old. And mind you, at the time, I thought I was successful. I thought life was great. I was in high school. I was going to all the parties. I was playing sports. I was, student government, president, all this stuff. And I'm like, my life's great. Why do I need to go to a self-help guru? Like, why? But she goes, it's in Los Angeles. I'm like, okay, if you're paying for me to go to Los Angeles, I'll go. I'd never been. I grew up watching movies. I really wanted to see it, to visit it. And so I came, and I got a lot out of it, learning the practical psychology, the things about human needs, beliefs, limiting beliefs and values, and all this stuff that ultimately everybody in that room is there for one thing. It's how can I be happy, right? There's people in there who made millions. There's people in there who are broke, but they're all in that room trying to undo that trauma, trying to undo all that expectation and the limiting beliefs that keep them caged in. And so that resonated with me, but at the time it didn't quite hit that nerve where I was like, I got to go back and learn more. Fast forward to 2 years later, I'm in college and I'm miserable. I'm studying something I don't like. I'm in a city that I don't enjoy being in because I grew up in South Florida. It's gorgeous. And I was in the sticks in Gainesville. And I'm like, what am I doing with my life? Who am I trying to prove? And I realized that I had been living based on this culture-scape, right? What society determined that you should do. All my friends had gone to name brand universities. They'd all gone on to study business, and they were eventually going to take over their dad's business, or they were going to work in some post-grad entry-level job and work their way up the corporate ladder. So I was like, okay, this is not for me. I moved back home. I went to the local university and I started studying rhetoric. Not only that, but then started volunteering at Tony events, free ticket, because you're in the room, You're listening to everything that's being taught, everything that's going on. And I'm just devouring all this knowledge at like 20, 21 years old. People there are, 40, 50, they're at that same place. They're learning the same things. So I'm like, wow, I'm really lucky to be learning this stuff now. I started volunteering, I started traveling. I went to San Jose, New York, Chicago. And then I started going to like the more advanced events where people who were like paying $5, $6, $7, $10,000 to go, I'm going for free. So I'm getting this education that is invaluable. And once again, I'm like, okay, I have all this knowledge. I still don't know what to do with my life. At the end of school, I was recruited by a speaker and coach himself and best-selling author named Brock Thomas. He comes up to me. He's like, hey, I see what you're doing at these events. I love your energy. I want you to work for me. I'm running a mastermind group. We're enrolling people left and right, and we're turning people into millionaires. The mastermind is called M1. And I'm like, okay, I'm in. I love this industry. I love personal growth. If I could be recruited right out of college to go right into recruiting other people and selling them this dream, this possibility of financial freedom, I'm so in. So I worked with him for a year. I got some of the best sales training, some of the best influence training that you could get. And yet I was sitting there on calls with people, on Zooms, on phone calls, asking them, where do you see your life in 5 years? What do you want out of life? What's your purpose? What would you do if you had all the freedom in the world? Questions that I didn't have an answer to. There's the next crisis. Once again, I am living based off of other people's expectations, other people's projections of what success is, what success would mean for me. And I had never gotten the chance to discover what I wanted or who I was. I hit a place where I was stressed, I was anxious, I was a little bit depressed. I wanted to find the way out because I'm like, okay, I've learned all the strategies you could possibly imagine about how to create wealth, about how to be financially free, about how to live an amazing lifestyle, healthy habits, workouts, at the science of achievement, right? Imagine 8 years in the personal development industry, devouring everything I could get my hands on. And yet there I was, still unhappy, still rudderless, no direction. I said, screw it. I quit the job. I traveled for 4 months in Europe. And what happened there was, the cliche is you go and find yourself, right? Because you have no idea what else you want to do. It's like that eat, pray, love moment where you've been doing the same thing over and over again, and you're Julia Roberts and you just want to get the hell out and go to Bali.
We've all been there.
Absolutely. And so I was like, okay, the cliche is find yourself, but guess what? There's nothing that's lost. It's only what's underneath everything that's been placed upon you and you've placed upon yourself. It's about shedding layers. There's a famous interview that they asked Michelangelo, the artist who created the David. They asked him, how did you create the David? How did you make him so perfect? And he said, the David was already inside that slab of marble. All I had to do was remove the pieces that weren't the David.
Damn. Mind blown right there.
Yeah. That's my philosophy for helping people and helping coach people. But that was first, I had to do that for myself. And so when you're abroad and you're alone, nobody cares where you went to school. Nobody cares what your degree is, who your parents are, what you do with your time, nothing. They meet this person with their own two eyes right in front of them. And at that point, it's like, okay, who are you? And if you do that every day for 4 months, you start to forget all the things that you thought you were and really become a fuller expression of yourself. On that journey, I decided, okay, I'm going to move to Los Angeles. Something about the city was calling me, the energy, how it's pretty much the Mecca in the US for, spiritual development, yoga and meditation and breath work. So I'm like, that's where I got to be. Came back from Europe. Literally, I didn't even unpack the bag. I just packed the second bag and I just moved across the country. Everybody was like, oh, you should stay, get a job, save up, make the right move. No way. You got to burn the boats. If not, you're not going to do it. You want to take the island, you burn the boats. And that was the best move I could have done, because I had already, while I was working for that mastermind, I was so stressed, I was so anxious, I was so confused and lost that I was like, okay, what can help me right now? And I started discovering meditation and breath work. I found so much peace in that. I found so much self-awareness that it brought me by discovering the things that triggered me, why I was really doing the things I was, the wounds that I had experienced early on in life, from the relationship with my mother, from moving to a different country, from learning and adopting the beliefs of the society and the culture around me, and how, as I was breaking free from that, I could integrate those lessons and integrate those perspectives in order to help other people who were where I just was. And so I get to LA and I start taking more yoga classes. I went to a hot yoga class, which kicked my butt. If you've ever been to a hot yoga class, you know what I'm talking about. No? Sarah looks like she
Yeah, I
has.
love it.
Yeah, you are in a pool of your own sweat, but it's just the best feeling ever. And then I learned breathwork techniques. I learned about meditation. And I said, okay, I could start teaching this stuff because this is what's really helping me. I want to reach back and to all the people who I know that are in the personal development field who still haven't found that peace, even though they've been to all the seminars, they've read all the books. This is the peace, guys. This is what's going on, because what happens is you leave one hamster wheel of the culturescape, right? Get a job, pay your mortgage, pay your debts, and you're living on this hamster wheel of society. But then you just upgrade it for the hustler, the achievement one, right? The hustle more, grind more, create more income, all this stuff, and you're still spinning in the same place. And so how can you just break free from that? And the answer to that is, for me, was healing, getting into the present moment and really discovering that the purpose of life isn't to have a purpose, it's to just be and live your life. So many times. What's that?
Oh no, sorry. I was just gonna jump in. I just really liked a lot of what you're saying, but I thought maybe there was a pause for you. I'm still listening. I'm all ears on you.
Thank you. And we can get into that a little bit. So I then go on to work for a company called My Intent, which makes bracelets with little intentional words on them. They're custom. And that was over the summer that we had the pandemic, and we were creating an online school for everybody. It was 12 hours a day of live Zoom classes, yoga, meditation, coaching, journaling, all the stuff, because we wanted to lend a helping hand out to all the people who were suffering because of all the isolation and in dealing with themselves. That quickly all kind of collapsed, which was the universe's way of saying, hey, no, it's actually time to go do your own thing. Like, I was being paid very well, like great benefits, great team. And the universe was like, nope, go do your own thing. I was like, okay, fine, I'll listen. Though the experience was invaluable because it connected me to some of the best healers and some of the best teachers that I know now in LA. So it expanded my network. It allowed me to reach even more people and open up new opportunities. And so now I'm in a point where all I want to do is share and continue learning. Share with the people who are seeking more, who are tired of the Western ideas, who have driven us into, some would argue, the worst mental health epidemic of current present human existence, right? These ideas that medicine and therapy are going to break us out of that. It's about going back to basics, about going back to the old teachings. And my job here, not my job, but my service to others, how I want to love and serve on everybody else, is to be a bridge between the science, between the hard facts of what we've been taught, and what some people call the hippy dippy, energy healing, the meditation and the breath work, which, guess what, comes from an ancient science and ancient art, and is part of who we are and part of getting back to who we really are as humans.
I want to focus on kind of one specific trend that you mentioned it for a second when you made your when you made your move to LA out of nowhere. but it seems like it's present in your whole entire life. And that's this burn the boat motto that you kind of brought up. And just for anyone who's unaware of what he's talking about, at one point, the Vikings would just go from island to island. And when they would get there, they just would burn their boats because there's no way we're going to fail. We're going to take over this island. This is us. And then guess what they do? They would take over that island every time. Right? Like these people it was a self-fulfilling prophecy of, I'm not giving up on myself. I'm going to go until the end, until the moment anything, goes wrong. It doesn't matter. I'm still pushing through for what I want and what I like in life. And I think that's super important for people to have. So I did want to mention that, but now I want to kind of jump into your childhood at some point, really quickly before I go into all the things that you teach now. At 12 years old, you said you were made the man of the house. I'd love to know, at this age, obviously, the pressure probably wasn't that noticeable. You're 12 years old, but as you get older, that pressure weighed on you a lot. What detriments do you think this kind of pressure brought you, and also what benefits did it bring out of you? I know there's a few mentioned, but I'd love to go a little more in depth in them.
Absolutely. And the detriments were psychological, mental, and not only that, but actually physical. My physical body kept the score on that. My shoulders were compressed from carrying the weight and the pressure of my family. Like my knees started to give in. And I've actually spent the last 2 years in physical therapy because of it. But mentally, it forced me to grow up really fast and to learn how to be really independent and how to do things for myself. My mom taught us how to do our laundry at 10 years old and never did it since, and to cook for ourselves and to cook for the rest of my family. And, a lot of that, yes, I may have been too young for it, but looking back, I would never trade it for anything else because I've matured in a different way than other people. And, it's given me so much experience that I would never trade away. And some of the detriment to that was that I wanted to please everybody. I wanted to please my mother. I wanted to please the people around me. And I hated failing. God, I hated being wrong. And I'm a Virgo, so even more, I hate being wrong. I'm constantly nitpicking myself. And I continued, as I mentioned before, to live based off other people's expectations of me, of what they thought success could look like for me, and what habits I should be adopting, what job I should be taking, where I should be living. And I completely lost any sense of who I was or who I wanted in my life. And it took a lot of undoing to get to where I am today. And a lot of healing had to happen with me and my mom. Our relationship. My mom is such a loving person. She's one of the most hardworking women I've ever met. She cleaned houses for 6 years for us so that she could put food on the table. And God bless her soul. Now she has a real estate license and she's, doing real estate in South Florida. And she's, this success story that you can really, achieve anything you set your mind to. And she put me on the path. She introduced me to Tony Robbins. She introduced me to Rock Thomas, to maybe the things that weren't helping her at the time, but she knew that could help me at some point, something in her. And the moment everything changed for me was when we were at a Tony Robbins event and we're driving home that night, and we'd just seen an intervention that he did. He was speaking to a woman in the crowd who was having a failing relationship with her boyfriend because she kept putting her son first, her son from a previous marriage. And I turned to my mom and I go, "That's us." She's like, "Yeah," because she's made me the man in her life, and no boyfriend of hers could ever compete with me, right? Because she loved me more. And we're driving home, and she puts her hand on my shoulder and she goes, "You're fired. You're free from being the man in my life." And at that moment, I literally felt a weight go like this, off my shoulders. I was now free to live my life, not with that idea that I'm going to be so successful and make so much money that I'm going to buy my mom a house, I'm going to make my parents move to the US worth it, and I'm going to be the one that fixes it all. It's just, me, my journey, go have my experience. And so that feeling of liberation was the precipice for me to really dive in and understand how I had been living my life for others before and how I could make the tweaks and the adjustments as to how I could go on to the rest of my path, the rest of my journey.
So I have a very similar situation, I guess, where I never had the weightlifted situation, and I was luckily not the man in the house. I was the youngest of three boys, but my mom and my father divorced when I was 9 years old, and for the next 12, 15 years while I was in the house still, I never had met a boyfriend or anybody. Turns out the entire time she was dating, she dated a guy for a year. She just always wanted us to like feel like we were first, and like there was no way that any replacement was going on. And I wonder how much that weighed on her at the time. And like listening to you say it, just like seems like it's a lot of pressure to put on both parties. Both sides are feeling a lot of pressure in that situation. It's like you feel like you need to be there for your mom at all times, and she feels like she can't make you feel unwanted or unneeded in these situations. And it's a really interesting contrast to have.
A realization that I had recently was actually that I was subconsciously competing with the men my mom was dating. And so I wanted to be smarter than them. I wanted to know more than them. And my mom, bless her soul, she had what we call daddy issues. Her dad left when she was really young, and he was an entrepreneurial magnate in Peru. He had factories. He worked his ass off. He worked so hard that he worked himself into dementia and alcoholism. But that aspect of the manly man, the guy, the rough and tough guy who works day and night and provides for his family, that's what she was seeking. And so that's what she sought in her partners, and that's what I thought I had to fulfill.
Damn. Well, during this time too, this is right, you said about like 16, 17, and now 17, 18, 19, 20, you are now surrounded by this kind of culture, this life of Tony Robbins, these other people, these other speakers, and you started working for some of them. Can you tell me some of the biggest early takeaways that really kind of brought you into the scene? And then the takeaways that you now put on other people, or you teach yourself?
Sure. The very first one was that I'm 20 years old and I'm speaking to someone in that seminar room, and they're there looking for the same thing. So I got to see that the societal conditioning and what you're supposed to do gets you right to the same place where I already was. And so I was able to say, oh, I can skip 20 years of getting married, doing the car, doing the job, and then going to midlife crisis in my mid-40s, ending up at a Tony Robbins seminar.
Quick shortcut.
Quick shortcut. And Tony Robbins was a big part of my early education. And what I took away the most from him was actually not any of a lot of what he taught in the seminar, but his technique in speaking with people and coaching them. And that a lot of it is based on analyzing people's language patterns. People will tell you everything they believe and everything that limits them just by listening to them. The way they use words, their tone, where their eyes go whenever they're speaking about something. You can tell how someone feels about something and by the words they use, right? If you ask someone about a relationship and they tell you, oh no, I don't want to be locked down, that choice of locked, I was like, what are your beliefs around relationships? And so it gave me a much more perceptive eye to people's language, and my studies in college with rhetoric and persuasion theory and philosophy was able to blend that and be like, oh, I can see how I can use logical reasoning to get someone to understand a really complex concept in a way that they can digest it.
Do do you ever feel like you use words and you look back and say, wait, why did I say it like that? What made me kind of go in that route?
Every day. Every day, Andrew. Like I said, I'm a Virgo. I'm consistently nitpicking myself. Mid-sentence, I'll be like, no, I get to go to work. I don't have to go to work.
That can be exhausting sometimes, I bet.
Yep, it can be. That's why I meditate and then set that intention from the beginning. But, it's a training, it's a skill. So the more you train yourself to use the language as power, then you can actually create your reality.
Right.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Well, I was just going to say, while you were speaking and sort of telling more about your story, well, first of all, your introduction to Tony Robbins was like so young. And I think it's amazing because look at where you are now. And most humans don't have an introduction to Tony Robbins until they're, like you said, like maybe 30s, 40s, or beyond that. But you mentioned like sort of, so your modalities that you practice are like yoga, meditation, and I think general like breath work, maybe more spirituality. And I was curious when you were talking about that sort of transition or bridge between the Tony Robbins like introduction early on in your life and then how you got to this point. And I think like both can be very healing. So like sort of, those sorts of seminars and workshops and things like that. But then also the sort of inward work that meditation, yoga, and breath work can be. And then I wanted to ask about therapy too, because I think we briefly touched upon that, which I'm super interested these days about what you said, the bridge between science and sort of like energy healing and things like that. And I'm curious what your thoughts are like, or if you've ever been in a therapy situation, or like sort of like what you think, do these two go hand in hand, or is it a shift away from therapy and more towards what you practice?
Thank you, Sarah. That was really, really well put together question. And I'd love to unpack that because the transition came when I realized that in learning about personal development and in growth, some of it, not all of it, can seem like you're steamrolling your experience, your trauma, and your triggers, right? Yet you can just, make your move and get in a state of absolute certainty and push on. And sure, that works sometimes, but underneath, there's something still dissonant. And so when I started to learn about how energy and how trauma can still have effects on you today, the mindfulness aspect and the breathwork aspect served as to increase awareness within a person in order to get them, or to get myself to connect with that energy and then heal it, so then I could move forward with more ease, because I was finding a lot of resistance. I was finding a lot of resistance, and it's like, wait, why don't I want to work and invest and go to school and all this stuff? There's something in me that's screaming like, hey, something is wrong. And so when I learned about those modalities, about how to increase consciousness and raise someone's level of consciousness, that became the missing link for me on how, not can I just create a better life, but how can I help people deal with their trauma, deal with their past energetically, physically, mentally, and consciously, in order to then open up a world of endless possibility, right? To liberate them. I'm not here to put you on a path and say, go that way, because sometimes personal growth is like, take my program and then build your business from this and all this stuff. No, it's all about free flowing creation. I'm going to remove everything that's not you. I'm going to help you remove that, and then become a full expression. Then you get to discover who you really are. Every single day, you're discovering more about yourself. You get to be a kid again, right? You're present and you're learning about your passions. And to go into the second part of the question, like Andrew mentioned that quote, ultimately, we're our own best healers. It's time to do the work. I went to therapy when I was a teenager because my younger sister, 2 years younger, attempted suicide twice. And she, she's different than me. She's shyer. She has a harder time making friends. She didn't adjust well to all the random moves of cities that we did early on. Me, I'm much more, I'm social. I like to go out and meet new people. And so I had a really good time doing that. But she really struggled. And so we went to therapy for that. And I found it was great to be able to download and talk about what had happened and discover new things and be asked really good questions. Though I didn't find the doing in it, right? The solving. Okay, let's move on. And so that was a long time ago. But now I have clients who I work with who have fired their therapists. They're like, I've been in therapy for 10 years. I haven't done as much healing of myself as I've done in the past 2 months. Because, okay, we're going to talk about what's going on, and then let's go in and address it. Let's go in and heal it. Let's process it. And then you can move on with your life. Let's not talk circles around it for 10 years and, maybe try and get somewhere, a realization. And therapists aren't there to shift your beliefs, aren't there to challenge you, aren't there to really introduce new ideas. They're there as a mirror, which is great. But I mean, talking to yourself in a mirror can just be a little redundant sometimes. And, sometimes it may rub people the wrong way, but I do have a bit of if you're willing to commit to this process, let's attack it gently, with compassion, with care, with love, but let's do the work.
So on our last episode, I was saying, well, the episode before this one, that's going to come out, I was saying that I tried therapy and it didn't work because I was not, the person just seemed to be doing their job. They didn't really push me. It wasn't organic. It almost felt like I was talking and then they'd be like, all right, well, what about this? And here's the next question. I love the sound of this, I love being challenged, I think, in regards. And for the therapy I've always thought of, you don't really get challenged unless you put it on yourself, where the therapy is kind of like walking with you rather than saying, hey, stop for a second. You're doing that. You're walking forward with me, but there's a better way we could do this. There's never that challenge from what I recognize as therapy is. So that's a really nice part to have. I do want to talk a lot about your meditation because meditation is so different and it's always so interesting to see the way people approach it, what the goal of it for people. So what is the goal when you're sitting down and meditating? You obviously work with people, but I'm assuming you do a lot of it yourself on your own time. What is your goal going into this meditation process? What is the process like?
Practice what you preach, right? If someone's not doing the things that they're telling you to do, then you should maybe have a problem with that. There's 2 types of meditation that I practice. It's called active meditation versus passive meditation. Passive meditation is what I learned first. And that's all about calming the mind, calming anxiety, calming stress, coming back to the breath. A lot of breath work technique is very useful in that. And that is just to center yourself into the present. And it's great for improving sleep. It's great for decreasing stress, decreasing anxiety, getting yourself into a place where you're centered, you're in the present, and you realize that there's nothing to worry about because you're right here, exactly where you're meant to be, and everything is going to happen the way it will. Active meditation is a lot of what I practice with my clients and with myself, in which we use meditation to access your subconscious and to imprint through visions and emotions the emotional states that you want to feel and how you want to resonate and vibrate as a human being. So, how to heal yourself, how to attract more wealth and opportunities, how to attract a romantic partner, how to attract a better lifestyle, how to lose weight, increase your level of performance, right? All these things can be done. And that's more on the Dr. Joe Dispenza, Michael Bernard Beckwith branch of mindfulness, right? Using these techniques to actually program yourself and make those shifts and those adjustments to create the life that you want and to attract everything that you want. Because if you're resonating high with gratitude, with all the opportunities that you could ever have, then people are going to be drawn to you. We've all walked into a room and seen that person who's just trying to make context and just trying to sell you something. It's off. But if you see a person that's so happy, so fulfilled, and you're like, I want to be friends with that person.
Is your meditation for someone, let's say someone who's just starting off, who really has never gotten into it, can't really sit down with themselves for an extended long period of time, do you have like a beginner idea of what you can go into versus this active and passive meditation? May not be that understandable for a newcomer.
Sure. Meditation is a skill. It's like riding a bike. None of us started on, a mountain bike with 10 gears and flying down the road. We all had training wheels. We all had someone holding the seat behind us. And that is some of what I teach. And because I do guided meditations, I would encourage people to seek out those guided meditations to help them gain the skills. And the most basic meditation that there is, and this is really like the fundamental core, is to pick an object to focus, whether it's your breath, and to pay attention to it. In meditation, every time your mind strays away, you catch the mind and you go back to the breath. And that's a rep. That is like a bench press or a bicep curl. Each time you do that, you get stronger and stronger at it, and your awareness begins to increase. And then you can do that in waking life. If you're in waking life and you start getting a panic attack, a bout of anxiety, a bout of stress, then you can catch the mind and say, wait, you're running away with thoughts again. You're creating fear. You're creating a reality that doesn't exist. Back to the present.
I'm excited to get to that point where I can practice it in waking life. I was just talking in the previous episode how I've just started being consistent with very short meditations, because for me, it's never been something I can do regularly and really sit down and focus on. But I've started guided meditations at only 5 minutes each time. But it really, it gets a little bit easier every time. It really is a skill. I just did my first 10-minute one and it felt like torture, but I tried. So
congratulations.
hopefully next time I do the 10-minute one, it'll be a little bit easier. But yeah, I guess the goal is to be able to do an unguided, sort of just like when I feel like I need one.
Oh my goodness. I was such an ADD kid, restless leg syndrome. I was always trying to do something, and getting to that point, at least where I am now, every morning, sometimes I still go, do I really want to meditate today? And every morning I say yes, 100%, because it gets me where I need to be. It gets me to that state where I remind myself of the truth. At this point, it's become a reminder, right? You sit down, you get into a meditative state, you remind yourself of your absolute truths, and then you're ready to go for the day. You're grounded and centered. But it takes practice, just like anything else. It's a skill.
I really like the way you pretty much created it as an intangible asset, where it's like you now, even though it was just started off in meditating, it just started off in focusing on that breath. Now in everyday life, when you're thinking about it, you can snap back to that, where you're not meditating anymore, but you are focusing yourself back on the one thing that calms you for that brief period of time. And I think that's extremely effective to kind of teach people as maybe not a goal, one of the many goals of meditation. And it's probably the first time I've ever heard it explained to me in a way where it is literally an intangible asset that is out there that I can be using on a constant basis in the real world. So I really like that. With that being said, Salva, we are going to have to cut you off. It's been nothing but interesting. Our listeners will not know this, but we will be doing a bit of a side project where we have a retreat in Bali coming up, and you will be one of the coaches that will be going. So I want to know kind of what's your approach to something like that, an approach to a week. And then after that, just anything that you're doing right now that you can plug for the people to go check out on your Instagram or wherever it is.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I'm so excited and so looking forward to Bali, because that is where my energy has been going. Paul, you have no idea. Before we met, I was calling and I was meditating, and I want to do retreats. I want to help people, give people transformational experiences at amazing locations. Because like I said, one-on-one work is fantastic, but I want to be able to leverage a little bit more of that. And we have lots of planning. We have lots of meetings, I'm sure, to be had, Paul, but my intention is to show up, deliver the best that I can, deliver meditative experiences, powerful, transformative breathwork experiences, and to support there and be a mirror there for the people as they're going through these realizations, to ask the right questions and to help them integrate what they've learned in the retreat and take it back with them. Because the most important part is integration of any, medicine journey, of any retreat, of any seminar, is how are you taking it, the information that you learned, the breakthroughs that you had, and practicing into your everyday life. It's really easy to do it with a view in Bali on a pool and, in tropical paradise. But if you go back to your concrete jungle, how are you practicing? And so for my shameless plug here, Andrew, I teach a weekly free breathwork and meditation workshop on Monday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. It's always free. Anybody's welcome. It's via Zoom. I do it live. We do breathwork techniques and then use the breathwork techniques to lead us into deep meditation. And we do everything from anxiety healing, attachment release, abundance manifestation, self-injury healing, everything. And I guide people and they share their experiences. And you can find that on my Instagram, on the link in my bio at salva.live. Just sign up for the emails and I send invitations out every week.
That's amazing. Free classes. That is fantastic for everybody that heard that. Well, Salva, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It was a pleasure to get to know you a little better. Thank you to everyone at home who watched, and please go check out at salva.live for more information on Salva. Let's continue to turn that mental health into mental wealth, guys. Thank you, everyone.